All right, I wanted to point out a couple of things on how Donald Trump does things, like puts regulations in place and things like that to try and like show he's being tough against his either Hillary Clinton, where he did his, anyone found mishandling classified information gets 5 years mandatory and blah 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 blah, and then it turns out, there's a box under the next to the first screen. But anyway, and then you have something in 2018, September 12th of 2018. Donald Trump put an executive order 13848 imposing certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in the United States election. That obviously was part of the plan, was he was supposed to win 2020. That was what he planned, that's what he promised everybody. So he put this in, and what it essentially does is 45 days after the conclusion of an election, okay, there is an assessment called for. The assessment is from the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, Homeland Security, the Treasury, the Attorney General. So for 45 days, they basically go after anything that says there was some form of election interference or something that points to another thing. And it goes down in this order about all the different things that if someone is found doing. And it talks about the assessment and information into any information indicating that a foreign government or any person acting as an agent or on behalf of a foreign government has acted with the intent or purpose of interfering in the election. It goes into every person involved, whether it's with money, technology, or just aiding and abetting. Goes into the property they hold. It goes into punishments for property and all this other stuff. So 45 days, all of these departments have to do some sort of threat assessment or investigative assessment on how deep and how many different ways the foreign intelligence affected and who helped where. Basically getting everything. The Secretary of Treasury, their investigation goes after everything financial and all the money transfers, who donates to whose campaigns, stuff like that. It goes after all of that. And if they find anything, Secretary of State, anything they find, which is anything happens during the states and anything like that, the polls and any issues they have there, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Homeland Security, each one of these divisions is doing their own stuff. They do an assessment 45 days after the election, okay? That assessment is brought to the Attorney General, and it's put in to Attorney General and Homeland Security gives their assessment after going through all these different departments combining. They give it to the President, and then a final assessment to everybody else. Okay, it goes from there to another 45 days that the president has with the assessment. So it's 45 days to make the assessment after the election, an additional 45 days that the president and everyone else has to say, hey, let's try and, figure out what we can do with this thing. And then after that 45 days, they have to have a independent plan, like a summation that goes submitted to the president, how all of these different agencies are going to solve this problem. So there's 45 days, then 45 days, that's 90 days, that's 3 months. So we're already at 3 months, and the President of the United States, the sitting President of the United States, that in 2018, that was intended to be Donald J. Trump, would then have 30 days to come up to and implement a plan to fix it. So it's 90 days and 30 days. That's 120 days if there's ever any evidence whatsoever that a foreign government or a civilian body through the technological, financial, blah, blah, blah. This executive order that Donald Trump put in place in September of 2018 was intended to blame on, set up, or whatever the next election, which would have been 2020. Didn't expect for it to have to happen to 2024. All of these things just bought 120 days after the election for just the executive order Donald J. Trump came into. And it goes through every single person. And it says specifically that every single person, all of the property that they own, all property and interests in property that are in the United States hereafter come within the United States and hereafter within the possession or control of any United States person are blocked, may not be transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, or in otherwise dealt in. That's in what Donald Trump wrote. That's the buildings, that's Trump properties, that's Muskie stuff, that's everything falls under what he wrote in 2018. His executive order intended to do damage to the other side. The same thing with the SCOTUS and immunity. It was intended to do damage to the other side, but until that one sitting president is out of office, that immunity stands with them, with him and her. So there's 120 days after the election, just for the executive order that Donald Trump put through. That's 4 months. December, January, February. That's without immunity. That's without flexing the dark branded muscles. That is what Donald J. Trump executive ordered in. And mishandling of documents, mandatory 5 years. The RICO charges, mandatory 5 years. All the different states, some of them have very specific interference laws that they have put into place. All those press releases from the DOJ, the FBI, the Attorney General's office that I've been getting dozens and dozens of, a week, that pertain to all different subjects, also have specific departments within their department that were kicked off specifically for this and expanded election interference from foreign entities and individuals with means. All covered. Now you know why everyone's silent. How many people could this actually affect? I've said it from that night. There are too many red flags. It's not over. And I'm very happy to hear it's becoming more obvious that it's not over. But stay diligent, stay educated, and be kind. We are all in this together. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Grab your popcorn. God bless.